Harold Stuart Phillips, on this indictment you are charged with assault, occasioning actual bodily harm, and the particulars are that on the 5th of September 1976, you did assault June Phillips, thereby occasioning her actual bodily harm. How say you? Are you guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty. Members of the jury, this is an unusual case. It isn't often that the actual events in a courtroom form the basis of a trial in another court. You have seen how in this case you have been sworn in, the counsel and the judge all take their places and so on, all in quiet order. And this is how it should be. Our whole system of justice depends upon our courts being orderly, even passionless places. You have to try this case, as any jury does, on the facts of the case and the law of the land. There's no room for screaming or demonstrations, let alone physical violence. Such behaviour is a defiance of our system, and it is with such behaviour that the accused is charged. An assault occasioning actual bodily harm in Fulchester Magistrates' Court. I call Mark Grimshaw.
Mark Grimshaw.
Harold Phillips is charged with assault on his wife June. The jury in this trial has been selected from members of the public who are eligible for jury service and whose names appear on the electoral register.
You are Mark Grimshaw?
Yes.
Where do you live?
Forsythia Cottage, Fenwick, near Fulchester.
And you are the clerk to the Fulchester Magistrates' Court?
I am.
Would you tell the court what happened in your court on the 5th of September last year?
The accused was present in the court on that day, apparently just watching. But he began to shout offensive remarks and jeered at the prosecuting barrister. The chairman ordered him to be quiet. He took no notice but made his way towards the front of the court. A woman stood up and attempted to stand in his way, but he thrust her violently against the wall so that she struck her head.
Did the woman say anything to him?
She said, "Harry, don't." Then he pushed her away.
I see. What happened then?
He was restrained by the police officer on duty, Sergeant Hughes, and the chairman of the magistrates ordered him to be sent down to the cells.
Was the woman hurt?
She was unconscious for a few moments, and she cut her head when she fell. She was taken to hospital where I believe she had some stitches.
Did you later ascertain who the woman was?
Yes, the accused's wife, Mrs. Phillips.
I see. So you saw the accused shouting in the courtroom and pushing Mrs. Phillips against the wall?
Yes.
No further questions, my lord?
You said that Mrs. Phillips attempted to stand in his way.
Yes.
Mr. Phillips then didn't approach Mrs. Phillips to assault her.
He pushed her.
Oh, come along, Mr. Grimshaw. You just said quite clearly that she stood in his way.
Yes.
Well, then what happened was that Mr. Phillips was moving quickly down the side of the court, and Mrs. Phillips suddenly stood up in front of him, and there was a collision which Mr. Phillips couldn't have avoided.
But if he was committing an offence at the time...
Mr. Grimshaw, in this court, his lordship is the arbiter of the law. Your job is to relate what you saw.
Yes, of course. My lord, please accept my apology.
That's quite all right, Mr. Grimshaw.
I put it to you, Mr. Grimshaw, that what you saw was a man moving very quickly and a woman stand in his way.
I did see that.
Thank you, Mr. Grimshaw. No further questions, my lord.
Mr. Grimshaw, I think you wanted to add something which my learned friend didn't want to hear. Would you describe exactly what you saw?
I saw the accused push Mrs. Phillips to one side so that she struck the wall.
It wasn't just a collision then, accidental or contrived. You saw Mr. Phillips thrust Mrs. Phillips to the wall after the collision.
Yes, precisely.
Thank you, Mr. Grimshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Grimshaw.
But you haven't asked who the barrister was.
Mr. Wilham,
My lord.
tell your client to keep quiet, will you?
My client tenders his apologies, my lord, and says that he will not interrupt again.
Very well.
I call Mrs. June Phillips. Mrs. Phillips, you are the wife of the accused.
Yes.
Are you at present living with Mr. Phillips?
No, we're separated. I'm waiting for a divorce.
I see. Now, were you at Fulchester Magistrates' Court on the 5th of September last year?
Yes.
Would you tell us what happened?
Well, I was sitting there when suddenly I heard my husband shouting. I turned round and I saw him coming down the aisle. I stood up to stop him.
Did you say anything to him?
Yes, I said, "Harry, don't." But he crashed into me. I tried to stop him, but he pushed me against the wall.
Did you attack him in any way?
No. I just wanted to stop him from getting into trouble.
So you acted simply to save him from himself?
Yes.
Were you at that time living apart from your husband?
Yes.
But you weren't feeling bitter towards him or vindictive in any way?
Oh, no. I was very sorry for him. I still am. He was very hurt.
So you can say categorically, can you, that you in no way provoked him on that day?
No. I just wanted to stop him from getting into trouble.
Thank you, Mrs. Phillips.
Mrs. Phillips, what was your husband calling out?
My lord, is this relevant?
My lord, my client is charged with assault. Surely the words he's alleged to have used are relevant.
Of course they are. I can't see why you objected, Mr. Harvesty.
As your lordship pleases.
No, Mr. Harvesty, I want to know why you object to that question.
My lord, I was merely trying to avoid allegations being bandied about that might hurt innocent parties.
Oh. I'm still not quite sure whether I understand or not. However, Mr. Willard.
Thank you, my lord. Mrs. Phillips, what was your husband calling out?
He shouted out, "Wife stealer," and "hypocrite."
To whom was he addressing these
My lord, my
remarks?
learned friend is asking the witness to express conclusions. He should only be asking her what she saw or heard.
Mr. Harvesty, Mrs. Phillips surely should be allowed to state whom she thought the accused was addressing. Let's have a little reality, shall we?
As your lordship pleases.
Mrs. Phillips, who was your husband shouting at?
Jeremy Halstead.
And who is Mr. Halstead?
He was a barrister prosecuting the case in the magistrate's court.
And you and Mr. Halstead are living together, are you not?
Yes.
What were you doing in the court?
That is, Mr. Halstead and I were worried about Harry and what he might do.
Why did you think that he might do anything?
He'd been trying to get in touch with Jeremy, and Jeremy didn't think there was much point in a meeting.
How had he been trying to get in touch?
By letter and telephone. He called at the house once or twice.
And what did he say then?
I don't know. We didn't answer the door. Well, we could see who it was from the window.
You didn't answer the door? You skulked behind the curtains?
We didn't skulk. We just chose not to talk to him.
But on the day in the magistrate's court, you ran to him.
Oh, that was different. I was trying to stop him from getting into trouble.
Yeah, let's deal with that so-called assault. You've just agreed that you ran to him.
Well, it wasn't really running. I stood up and I moved to him.
And what happened then?
He pushed me against the wall.
Come along, Mrs. Phillips. You'll have to be a lot more specific than that. Tell us in detail exactly what happened.
Well, it all happened so quickly.
So you can't remember exactly what happened?
I was pushed.
How? Did Mr. Phillips push you with his body or his hand?
Both.
With his body and his hand? Or both hands?
Our bodies came together and I felt him brush me away with his hand.
Brush? But before you said pushed.
You're quibbling.
No. But it seems you're not being careful enough about the words you choose to describe the incident. On oath.
I'm doing my best.
Good. So, let's see whether your husband pushed you or brushed against you, because the difference is between guilt and innocence, Mrs. Phillips.
He was determined to get to Jeremy, and he wasn't going to let me stop him.
Excellent. So, his was not an assault on you, but an accidental collision on the way somewhere else.
All I know is that I was in front of him, and I felt his hand on my side, and I felt him push me against the wall.
So we're back to pushed now, Mrs. Phillips.
Well, yes,
That's all right. I'm sure the jury will have noted your confusion on the subject. Now, let's turn to another matter. You said that your husband had attempted often to get in touch with you.
Yes.
Did you believe that he wanted to see you in order to attack you physically?
No.
Or assault you in any way?
No.
But you resolutely refused to see him.
We thought it would serve no useful purpose.
We being you and Mr. Halstead.
Yes.
I see. But he never at any time suggested or indicated that he might behave violently towards you.
No.
So you must have been considerably surprised when he collided with you.
Yes.
But in spite of never having received any threats or indications of violence, you assumed that he had deliberately assaulted you.
It seemed that way to me.
Why did he say he wanted to see you?
He just said he wanted to talk things over.
I see. How long have you been married?
9 years.
And you left him?
Yes.
It didn't seem reasonable to you that after 9 years your husband should think he had the right to talk things over?
Oh, but we had talked things over. We talked and talked before I left. Well, that was just the point. There didn't seem to be anything left to talk about.
But Mr. Phillips thought there was.
Well, that's because he thought he could talk me into coming back to him. But he can't. Our marriage is over. It's dead. And if you want to know, he killed it. He didn't want a proper marriage, not a committed marriage. It was just a game to him.
I see. Mr. Willard?
Come now, Mrs. Phillips. Mr. Phillips is in court today because he was so anxious to restore his marriage.
To save his pride, more likely. It was because I left. He couldn't bear to be the one who was rejected.
That may be your idea, Mrs. Phillips. But my instructions are that my client wishes the marriage to continue, not to leave it.
That's what he says now.
Yes, he does indeed.
How was it that the three of you happened to be in court at the same time, Mrs. Phillips? A coincidence?
No. He threatened that he'd come to court to see Jeremy next time he was appearing.
Uh-huh. Mr. Willard?
Threatened?
He wrote a letter saying that if he wouldn't agree to see him at his home, he'd come to court next time Jeremy was there.
And how is that a threat, Mrs. Phillips?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
You just said that your husband threatened that he would try to see Mr. Halstead in court. Don't you mean informed?
He said in the letter.
Yes, you've told us what he said in the letter. I put it to you that in that letter was information, not a threat.
He said he was coming. As far as I was concerned, that was a threat.
Yes, but we're not interested in your, perhaps, guilty feelings. We're interested in facts. No further questions, my lord.
Very well.
You haven't asked her about him.
Phillips!
My lord, it's important. He hasn't asked her about him. It's important.
Mr. Phillips, you will be quiet. I'll have you placed in the cells and the case will proceed without you.
But how do I get justice?
My lord, may I have a moment for a few words with my client?
Yes, and you better impress on him the seriousness of his behaviour.
Of course, my lord. My lord, I'm afraid a few words are not sufficient. I'm afraid I shall have to ask for a short adjournment in order to take fresh instructions.
Oh, very well. We shall adjourn until 2:15.
Court will rise.
My lord, I have spent the whole of the adjournment with my client. He is dissatisfied with my cross-examination of his wife and does not feel able to take my advice concerning the conduct of the defense. In these circumstances, my lord, he feels that it is in his best interests to take over the conduct of his own defense and to withdraw my instructions.
I see. Mr. Phillips, you wish to dispense with the services of your counsel and conduct your own defence?
Yes, my lord.
Well, that is your right if you wish to exercise it. You know, there's a saying in the legal profession that a man who defends himself has a fool for a client. Understand what that means?
Yes, I think so, my lord, but...
That's not necessarily true, of course. People have defended themselves successfully, but usually when they've decided to do so before the trial and have prepared themselves carefully. You know, you cannot expect any help from the court in a positive sense. It will, of course, prevent you from being taken advantage of because of your ignorance, but it cannot suggest any ways of using the law to your own advantage.
I do understand that, my lord.
Very well. Mr. Willard, you're excused.
Thank you, my lord.
Am I to understand that you wish to ask your wife some questions?
Yes, my lord.
Mrs. Phillips, will you please return to the witness box? You understand that you are still under oath?
Yes.
Where did you meet Mr. Halstead?
My lord, how can that question possibly be relevant to this case?
On the face of it, it isn't. Mr. Phillips, will you please tell me why you think that question is relevant to the case?
Well, obviously, my lord, my outburst didn't arise from nothing. The jury won't understand what happened unless they know something of the background of the case.
I agree that a certain amount of background information is essential to the understanding of every case. However, there are limits, and if it seems obvious to me that you are straying beyond those limits, I shall stop you. Do you understand?
Yes, my lord.
Very well.
Where did you meet Mr. Halstead?
At a party at our house.
And when did you first go to bed with him?
That night.
My lord, we're here to try Mr. Phillips. There's a grave danger that innocent people are going to be besmirched for no proper reason.
My lord, if I'm to defend myself against the charge that I assaulted my wife, surely I must be allowed to show that my behaviour towards her has been characterised by a tolerant and totally unviolent attitude.
Very well. But I must warn you, I'm not entirely happy with this line of questioning.
Thank you, my lord. You went to bed with him that night?
Yes. There was not much chance of going to bed with you that night, was there? You were otherwise engaged, if I remember rightly.
Yes, you do remember rightly. You went with Mr. Halstead to his home, didn't you?
You know very well I did. I told you I was going.
And was I very angry?
No.
What did I say?
You said, at last you'd be able to find out the answer to a question that had puzzled you for some time. Do barristers tie up their briefs with red ribbon?
Right. I made a joke.
A weak one.
I didn't beat you about the head or drag you screaming through the house.
No.
Would you have been surprised if I had?
Well, of course. We had an agreement. We were both allowed to sleep with whoever we wanted to.
With no conditions?
No.
No conditions?
Only that we were to be totally honest about it and not try to hide our affairs.
And you were perfectly happy with the arrangement?
Well, I had to be, didn't I? You started it. If I hadn't followed suit, I'd have had a very lonely life.
No, whoever started it, you were perfectly happy with our domestic arrangement.
It was the best I could do if I was going to continue living with you.
You must answer the question, were you happy?
No.
But do you remember you told me a couple of days before the party that you were happy?
I thought I was. I convinced myself that the sort of life we were leading was exciting. I abandoned any ideals I might have had about marriage being a committed relationship, and so I thought I was happy. But now I have the love of one man. I don't want to sleep around with casual pickups at parties. I know I wasn't happy then because I'm really happy now.
So after that first night, you continued to see Mr. Halstead?
Yes.
When?
Whenever I could.
Without telling me?
Yes.
You deceived me then?
Yes, just as you deceived me. Well, that's how it all started, or don't you remember?
I do remember that I deceived you at first and you found out. But we
Yes.
made a bargain.
Yes.
Which you broke.
Yes, and I'm glad I did.
We had only one real condition, that we would be honest with each other, that we would talk to each other.
Yes.
And suddenly I came home one day and you were gone.
It was the happiest day of my life.
Were you surprised that I wanted to talk to you?
No.
Don't you think I had a right to talk to you?
Well, it depends what you mean by right. You certainly didn't have a legal right, if that's what you're asking.
Oh, yes, I'm sure your lover will have briefed you well on your legal rights.
My lord, this unedifying cross-examination isn't furthering this case in the least.
Mr. Phillips, I've been very patient in allowing you to bring out what you call the background to this case. Far more lenient, indeed, than if you'd been a barrister. But I cannot allow this largely irrelevant cross-examination to continue.
I'm very sorry, my lord. I'll bring it to an end as quickly as possible. Did I ever threaten you or Mr. Halstead in any way?
You said you'd come to court to see him.
But that wasn't a threat. We'd been through all that.
You said you were coming. We saw it as a threat.
And if anyone had told you before that day in court that I would physically assault you, would you have believed them?
I don't know. I don't think of you as a violent man. But you never can tell when a man's pride of possession is threatened.
So to sum up, we had an agreement which specifically ruled out pride of possession, as you call it.
We agreed to allow each other sexual freedom,
And
certainly.
you abused that freedom.
I fell in love.
That isn't the point. You didn't tell me of your increasing involvement with your lover, and after you left, you refused to talk to me.
Yes.
But in spite of that, did I ever threaten you with physical violence?
No.
Would you repeat that answer for the benefit of the jury?
No, Mr. Phillips, you will not repeat it. Your line of questioning will now end.
Yes, my lord.
Now, have you any further questions to ask this witness that are absolutely relevant to the charge?
Could I think for a moment, my lord?
Yes, but not for too long.
Yes, about the actual details of the assault. Did I say anything to you when you bumped into me?
No.
Nothing like get out of my way or anything at all?
No.
In view of what you've said about the way I've always behaved towards you in the past, what made you think I'd assaulted you instead of, well, just accidentally colliding with you?
I felt you push me.
I agree there was a collision, so you must have felt a force of some kind, but what made you think I deliberately pushed you?
It seemed that way to me.
Well, I put it to you that it didn't seem that way to you at all at the time, but Mr. Halstead put the idea in your mind when he came to pick you up.
No.
Do you remember him picking you up?
No, I was dazed. I'd banged my head on the wall. But I do remember Mr. Halstead saying...
What did he say?
He said, "Are you all right, darling?" Something like that.
Do you remember me?
Yes, a policeman was holding you.
And what did Mr. Halstead say to me?
He said something like, "You've gone too far now."
No. His actual words were, "You bastard, you've gone too far."
I don't remember that.
Perhaps you were too dazed.
No, I don't think so.
Nevertheless, I put it to you that Halstead believed I had deliberately pushed you.
Yes, he did. He saw you.
And he put the idea in your mind.
No, I'm just telling you what I remember.
No more questions, my lord.
Mrs. Phillips, I should like us to be clear about the basis of your marriage. Have we heard the whole story?
No, of course not. You've just heard his side.
Well, how did this extraordinary marital arrangement begin?
He went away on a conference and had an affair. I found out about it. I also found out that it wasn't the first. Not by a long chalk. He said he didn't feel guilty about it, and he urged me to be as free as he was.
And you went along with this?
It seemed to be the only way.
But it didn't make you happy?
No. I thought it did, but I realized I was just distracting myself from a failed marriage.
And he continued to have affairs?
Yes.
And told you about them?
Oh, yes. In detail. I think that was half the fun of it for him, telling me about it. He also wanted to know everything about
That's not fair. Mr. Phillips, you've had your opportunity to cross-examine. If you think Mr. Harvey is asking improper questions, you must make your objection to me.
My lord, is it fair that she says I got kicks out of telling about our encounters?
Well, most of the answer was perfectly proper. But, Mr. Harvey, I do think you should try and avoid leading your witness into expressing her own conclusions.
Your lordship pleases. Mrs. Phillips, you didn't tell your husband about your affair with Mr. Halstead.
No, I didn't want to contaminate it. It was very precious to me. Private.
Yes, I see. Well, let's just return to this assault. You're absolutely sure that you felt your husband push you?
Yes. I felt his hand on my side, and there was a thrust that sent me against the wall.
Have you spoken to your husband since then?
No.
You have no wish to?
No. Divorce proceedings are pending. Our solicitors can make all the arrangements between us.
I see. Thank you very much. My lord?
Oh, I've no questions. Thank you, Mrs. Phillips.
My lord, I've thought of something else.
Oh? Well, it's too late. I gave you time to think. I see no reason to allow you to ask any more questions. The witness's examination is now closed. It's 4 o'clock. I think we'll adjourn. 10:30 tomorrow morning.
The court will rise.
The cases in Fulchester are fictitious. Tomorrow you can join us again when the Queen against Phillips will be resumed in the Crown Court. Harold Phillips is accused of assault on his wife June, occasioning actual bodily harm. The defendant dismissed his barrister yesterday and elected to defend himself. The jury in this trial has been selected from members of the public who are eligible for jury service and whose names appear on the electoral register. Today opens with the prosecution continuing to present their case.
Sergeant Hughes, would you tell the court what you saw and did on the 5th of September last year?
I was on duty in the magistrate's court and I was standing by the doors just inside the courtroom. Suddenly a man I recognised as Mr. Phillips, the accused, leapt to his feet shouting and ran down the side of the court. I immediately moved to restrain him and remove him from the court. I saw a woman rise from her seat and attempt to intercept him. She was pushed violently to one side, striking her head on the wall. I got to the man, restrained him, and removed him from the court.
You say you saw the woman violently pushed against the wall.
That is correct, sir.
There's no doubt in your mind, then, that she was pushed, and it was not an accidental collision?
I'm quite sure.
Thank you, Sergeant.
You say you saw me stand, begin shouting, and then run down the aisle. When did you move to restrain me?
As soon as you started shouting.
And you moved quickly.
I ran.
Precisely, so you were running when the collision took place.
Yes, I must have been.
No, there's no must have been about it. Were you or weren't you?
Yes, I was running.
So even though you were running across the court when the collision occurred, you can still say on oath that you're sure she was deliberately pushed.
Yes?
You ask us to believe a great deal, Sergeant.
I ask you to believe what I saw.
Or what you thought you saw.
I'm aware of the difference. I'm saying what I saw.
All right. Did I struggle with you?
Not really, but I wouldn't have expected you to.
Oh? Why?
Well, struggling in a full Nelson is a difficult business.
Is it? Well, I wouldn't know. I'm not a man of violence, and I wouldn't dream of struggling with a policeman. What did I say when we got outside?
You kept saying, that bloody hypocrite.
And who was I talking about?
You didn't say. I'm here to give evidence of what I saw and heard, not what I thought.
Yes, very proper. But at all events, I gave you no trouble and was calm.
Yes, but I would have expected you to be.
Well, why?
Being alone in a cell is a calming business.
You're a philosopher, aren't you?
No, a policeman.
All right, as a policeman, then, don't you find that when you attempt to arrest somebody, seconds after they've been involved in a violent physical assault, the violence spills over onto the arresting officer?
Sometimes, not invariably.
No further questions, my lord.
Thank you, Sergeant.
That concludes the case for the prosecution, my lord.
Very well.
What about Jeremy Halstead?
What about him?
Well, I thought he was being called by the prosecution.
My lord, I have to prove my case beyond all reasonable doubt, and it's a matter of judgment for me to decide how many witnesses I call. If I called all the witnesses who were in that court on the day in question, we should be here forever. I rest my case on the evidence of the witnesses you've already heard.
It's a bloody mafia! A barrister's mafia!
You seem to regard yourself as being free to rave and shout in any court you're in. You are not. Any further statements like that, you'll find yourself in prison for contempt, regardless of the outcome of this trial.
I'm very sorry, my lord, but I was upset that Mr. Halstead is not being called. I need to question him.
If you need a witness for your defence, and you can satisfy me that it is necessary, you can subpoena him as a defence witness.
Well, of course I need him, my lord. He was the nearest man to me when I accidentally collided with my wife. And the only man in court, apart from the magistrates, who was actually facing me. All the others were looking sideways on.
My lord, Mr. Halstead made no statement to the police, and there's no reason to believe that he saw what was going on. He was, after all, at the front of the court, conducting his own case. I cannot help speculating that Mr. Phillips is motivated by a desire to cause as much embarrassment as possible.
Yes, but what I want to know is why he didn't make a statement, because he thought it might help me.
This is precisely what I had in mind, my lord. Insinuations against Mr. Halstead.
Surely, my lord, I'm entitled to subpoena anyone who was in the court that day, and in the hope that they might have seen exactly what happened.
Well, very well. I shall order that a subpoena be issued to Mr. Halstead. But if I see that you are abusing the witness, I shall release him. Do you understand?
Yes, my lord.
I am Jeremy Halstead, my lord, and I will give evidence if asked.
Oh, very well.
May I just mention I'm due to appear on a case in Manchester Crown Court tomorrow. I wonder if I might be able to give evidence today.
Mr. Phillips?
I've no objection to calling him now, immediately.
Very well.
And you are a barrister, Mr. Halstead?
Yes.
Will you tell the court what you heard and saw on the day in question?
I was prosecuting a case at Fulchester Magistrates' Court when I heard a commotion in the court behind me.
A commotion?
Yes.
What sort of commotion?
A man was shouting. I turned...
Just a moment, Mr. Halstead. What was the man shouting? What were his exact words?
I heard the words hypocrite and wife-stealer.
I see, so you turned round.
Yes.
Why, because you recognise the words as applying to yourself, perhaps?
No, anyone shouting anything in a court would cause one to turn round.
I see. And what precisely did you see?
I saw you standing and making towards me.
And were you surprised to see me?
No, you had threatened to appear at court.
Threatened? We've heard that word before, haven't we, from Mrs. Phillips? Did you coach her in her evidence?
My lord.
Must you make these suggestions, Mr. Phillips?
My lord, it's a question. Surely the jury has a right to know how independent the testimony is.
Oh, very well.
Did you coach her in her evidence?
Of course not. But we live together. And naturally, we've discussed you, and you're continually pestering us. We feel alike about it. So it's hardly surprising that we use the same language.
Were you surprised to see me in the court?
No. You had threatened to appear, but I'd hoped you'd come to your senses.
Had I told you I was coming to court to make a disturbance?
No.
What had I said then?
As far as I recall, you said that you would attempt to see me at court after I had finished.
But evidently, as you say, I didn't wait for that.
Evidently.
Can you think of any reason why I should have changed my mind?
I'm a barrister, not a psychiatrist.
Could it have been the nature of the case?
Oh, I'm not here to speculate.
Could it have been that you were riding a very high moral horse and being very censorious of someone who sexually, compared to you, was a babe in arms?
My lord, this is completely irrelevant. If the accused is saying that he was provoked into committing this assault, then he should plead guilty and then plead in mitigation of sentence.
If you are seeking to prove that you were provoked, let me explain that is no defence to the charge. Indeed, it merely strengthens the case of the prosecution, in that it proves you had a motive, what they allege you did.
I have nothing further on that point, my lord. You say you saw me making towards you.
Yes.
Then what?
Well, Mrs. Phillips stood up and attempted to restrain you. You put your left hand just above her waist at the bottom of her ribs, and with a thrusting movement sideways, you pushed her with a deliberate, forceful movement.
That is a remarkably detailed description.
I'm trained to be detailed.
Are you sure it's not because you've sat in court here and heard the confessions of Mrs. Phillips, who wasn't really sure whether I'd pushed her or brushed past her, and you think you might be able to remove all that doubt?
I'm telling you what I saw.
You've said you weren't a psychiatrist, but you sounded then like an anatomist at least. Did our bodies touch before this sideways thrusting movement took place?
Well, I couldn't see that. Mrs. Phillips was between you and me, so I couldn't see how close you were. But I did see your hand as it appeared on her ribs.
Can you be sure this wasn't a purely defensive gesture?
Oh, you mean you were afraid of Mrs. Phillips assaulting you?
No, that I was trying to avoid a serious collision. I instinctively held out my hand.
No, Mrs. Phillips moved rapidly sideways the moment your hand appeared, and your hand remained in contact with her body. Unless Mrs. Phillips suddenly decided to throw herself headlong into the wall and your hand remained on her ribs all the time, it must be that you pushed her.
All right, all right. You believe that I pushed her. Does that surprise you?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, you have lived with my wife for some months now. Has she ever told you once that I ever hit her?
No.
Or physically ill-treated her in any way?
No.
So as far as you know, my action was out of character?
I don't think I really know you well enough to be able to answer that question.
All right. Nothing you do know about me might lead you to expect that I would suddenly become a wife-beater, would it?
No.
Good. Now, let's return to the night you met my wife.
My lord, when the accused asked for this witness, he said he wanted him to give evidence about the assault. Such evidence would be material. The question he now proposes to ask cannot possibly be material.
Mr. Phillips?
But, my lord, this subject has been dealt with in evidence. My wife talked about it. That's right, she talked about their first meeting and she talked about the assault. Surely, as I've pointed out, their language is largely the same. Surely I must be allowed to test their truthfulness against each other.
You are entitled to ask questions on peripheral matters for the purpose which you stated, but they must be for that purpose.
Thank you, my lord. Do you remember the night you met my wife?
Yes, of course I do.
And did you take her home to your house?
Yes, I did.
And you slept together?
Yes.
But you're a married man, Mr. Halstead. Well, aren't you?
Yes.
So how could you be sure that your wife would not be there to disturb this pleasant arrangement?
Well, she said that she wouldn't be coming home.
When did she tell you?
At the party.
And where did she tell you she'd be?
I didn't really see what all this has got to do with the charge.
You don't have to, Mr. Halstead. You're not standing here above all the petty sins that you make your living from. You're in the box. Where did she tell you she'd be?
My lord, do I have to answer that question?
Why do you want to know the answer, Mr. Phillips?
It is essential to establish this witness's veracity, my lord.
I hope it is, Mr. Phillips. Answer the question.
She said she'd be staying with you.
That's right, Mr. Halstead. On that night, we had a wife swap, you and I, didn't we? Didn't we?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips, you've disobeyed my ruling, and I believe you've done it deliberately. We're going to adjourn now. When we return, you will cease this line of questioning, you understand?
Perfectly, my lord. The judge has forbidden me to ask you about your former social life, so answer me this. On that day in September, did you make any connection in your mind between the way you lived and the attitude you adopted to those people in that trial?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, the accused in that trial seemed to have a pretty relaxed attitude to sexual matters.
Yes.
And you talked to her as if from an Olympian moral height. You, a self-confessed wife-swapper, were pouring scorn on that woman.
I was prosecuting a case as a professional barrister and proceeding in a perfectly normal way.
But you can see why I was provoked.
I cannot accept a plea of provocation on a charge of assault and affray, nor would your counsel. I imagine that's why he walked out.
Mr. Halstead, you know perfectly well that is a grossly improper remark.
I'm very sorry, my lord. Perhaps I could enter a plea of provocation.
And I will not accept your defence either. Mr. Phillips, your questions are still totally irrelevant. Will you please change the subject? Or better still, finish with this witness altogether?
I shall, my lord, very quickly. Mr. Halstead, why wouldn't you see me? Talk to me?
There was no point. Your wife had made her decision. I was delighted. There was nothing to be gained by a fruitless, emotional meeting.
Except perhaps this trial might have been avoided. No further questions, my lord.
Mr. Halstead, did you have any intention whatsoever of provoking Mr. Phillips?
No.
And you've now established a proper relationship with Mrs. Phillips?
Oh, yes. Divorce proceedings are underway and we're going to be married as soon as possible.
Good. And your refusal to see Mr. Phillips was because you wished to disassociate yourself entirely from your former way of life?
Yes.
My lord, is this meeting of the Barristers' Mutual Benefit Society relevant to the case?
Have you any further questions, Mr. Harvester?
No, I have finished, my lord.
I call Mrs. Sybil Halstead.
Mrs. Sybil Halstead.
Hold the book in your right hand and read the words from the card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you so much.
You are Mrs. Sybil Halstead?
That is so.
And you are the wife of...
One moment. Will you please give us your address, Mrs. Halstead?
97 Avonlea Gardens, Fulchester.
Thank you. Yeah?
And you are the wife of Jeremy Halstead?
Well, I am at the minute, but I don't know for quite how long. I gather our little arrangement has just come to an end.
By little arrangement, I take it you mean your marriage?
Yes.
Then please be accurate.
But I was, my lord. I mean, look at him. One could hardly describe a relationship with him as a grand alliance or even a marriage. No, I think little arrangement is far more accurate.
Please don't play with words in this court. Just use plain, unambiguous language.
But I must be allowed to obey my oath and answer questions truthfully.
Carry on, please, Mr. Phillips.
Do you remember the night when your husband first met my wife?
Yes, of course I do, darling.
Mrs. Halstead, I will not have this court use of vulgar display. Now listen and listen carefully. Unless you adapt yourself to the usages and forms of polite behaviour, which I'm sure you understand, I will punish you. Do you understand?
Yes, my lord. It was beautifully expressed and crystal clear. I will attempt to adapt myself to the usages and forms of polite behaviour.
Very well, Mr. Phillips.
Was your husband in any way put out when you decided to stay with me?
No. It was that kind of a party, wasn't it? I imagine anyone who went home with their own wife or husband would have felt rather cheated.
My lord, throughout this case, we've had the defence raising dozens of irrelevant issues, asking irrelevant questions, and, with the greatest respect, my lord, treating us all with contempt.
Indeed, Mr. Harvester. We have already suffered a mass of irrelevance. Now, Phillips, you will take this warning from me as being absolutely final.
Yes,
If you waste any more of this court's time, I'll have you punished for contempt. Do you understand?
Yes, my lord.
Now, do you wish to ask this witness any further questions? I must say, nothing she has said so far has borne any relevance to this case whatsoever.
It is essential that I continue the questions, my lord, but I will change the subject.
Very well, but bear in mind what I said.
Mrs. Halstead, we've seen each other several times since our spouses left us to set up together, haven't we?
Yes, but I don't think we should go into details, do you? We don't want to offend the judge.
Mrs. Halstead, what has been my attitude towards Mr. Halstead during this time?
Well, to me, quite honestly, incomprehensible.
In what way?
Well, you kept trying to see him.
And why did he keep trying to see him?
He wanted his wife back. He wanted to talk.
Just talk?
Well, he felt if he could persuade him to release June, they could have another go at their marriage.
I see. Mr. Phillips?
And you kept trying to dissuade me?
Yes, of course I did. I kept telling you. To my certain knowledge and experience, he doesn't improve on knowing. On the contrary.
But can you say quite categorically that I tried again and again to see your husband?
Yes, I can.
And what was the result of his continual rejection of me?
You became more and more boring.
Boring?
Yes, you became depressed and preoccupied. Not the man I first met at all.
And did I tell you why I wanted to see Mr. Halstead?
Yes, frequently.
And you were, shall we say, contemptuous of this?
Well, yes, it does rather reduce marriage to the level of a fairground coconut shy, doesn't it, darling? I'm sorry, my lord. Mr. Phillips.
And you had no doubt, whatever you felt, that my motives for wanting to see him were sincere?
No doubt at all. As I say, you became very boring.
Thank you, Mrs. Halstead. No further questions.
Mrs. Halstead, why have you come here to this court to give evidence?
Because Mr. Phillips asked me to, and I thought it my duty to help. Justice and all that.
You always do your duty, do you, Mrs. Halstead?
Yes, doesn't everyone?
Haven't you come here as part of a plot with Mr. Phillips to take revenge on your husband?
Oh, dear, I really do find that rather devious. Very clever of you to think of it, but I must almost regretfully plead not guilty.
You dislike your husband, don't you?
Ah, now that's not half so clever. Of course I dislike my husband. It's perfectly obvious.
Well, I put it to you that you've come here to express that dislike and to damage his career and reputation.
But why should I assist in doing something that he is doing quite successfully and totally unaided?
Why do you dislike your husband so much? Because he left you?
No, on the contrary. It's the first thing he's done for years has given me any pleasure whatsoever.
Then why have you come here to damage him?
I haven't. I told you I came here to help Mr. Phillips, if I can.
How can you help him?
Well, I don't really know, but he felt that if he came here and could explain in court how he tried to see my husband legally and without fuss, the jury might understand his alleged outburst.
But you don't believe that?
I don't really know. I do know that he did try and see my husband in every way he knew possible, and when he couldn't, he became depressed and preoccupied. Now, whether or not that's going to help him, I really don't know.
Well, perhaps he thinks that'll help him.
Well, let's hope it does. After all, we none of us like to see people unhappy, do we? We all hope he gets off, surely. My husband always used to say when he was prosecuting, he didn't want to see anyone punished. He was just doing his job. I assume you're the same, so let's all hope I've helped him.
Mrs. Halstead, I find it very difficult to believe that your appearance here at this court isn't seen by you as some elaborate joke.
Do you?
Yes.
How very interesting. And what possible fun do you think it is to stand here and discuss the most boring marriage since Queen Victoria's, and to be constantly reprimanded for being honest?
You say that Mr. Phillips was constantly trying to see your husband?
Constantly.
Oh, constantly. You mean that since the breakup of your marriage, you and Mr. Phillips have been living together?
Living together? Well, that would be absurd. One doesn't break out of Dartmoor in order to break into Wormwood Scrubs. We have seen each other from time to time. But having only recently discovered the joys of having breakfast alone, I'm hardly likely to find myself forced into a situation where I have to pretend that I enjoy finding things to say over toast and coffee.
Nevertheless, I put it to you that you and Mr. Phillips are more than just good friends, that you've had a physical, sexual relationship with him ever since your marriages broke up.
Well, of course we have. You really do seem to be a very cynical gentleman. If we hadn't got a physical relationship, under the circumstances, we should be less than good friends.
Oh, you'd find it difficult, would you, to contemplate a friendship with a man without a physical element?
No, I could contemplate it. Doesn't necessarily mean to say that I'd enjoy it.
So you admit to being Mr. Phillips's mistress?
Oh, how quaint. Do you know I haven't heard that expression in years? Charming.
You haven't answered my question.
It's very difficult. Of course, Mr. Phillips and I have made love from time to time. But whether or not that constitutes my being a mistress or not, it's difficult to say. I just haven't thought about it.
So it isn't surprising, is it, that when Mr. Phillips finds himself in trouble, you trip along here to support him?
No, it isn't. Should it be?
It does indicate how much weight one should give to your testimony.
Yes, it does. I'd rather believe someone's friend than their enemy. It's difficult enough to believe in the objectivity of friendships. Almost impossible to believe in the objectivity of enmity.
Oh, now, that's very clever, Mrs. Halstead.
Yes, it was rather, wasn't it?
You'll understand when I say that it's too clever by half. You seem very much more concerned with the effect that you're having here, rather than trying to help this court. More concerned with style than truth.
There you are. You're being cynical again. And why should style and truth be opposites? You really do seem to have a very depressing view of life.
And you are very concerned with style, aren't you?
Yes. The form of things is very important. Isn't that why you're wearing those clothes and the judge wearing his? Isn't it an attempt to gain authority by style?
And you have come along to this court to show off your style and not to help Mr. Phillips.
No. I came to help Mr. Phillips. But if one has to appear in court dealing with some grubby little fracas that's been blown up out of all proportion, if one has to stand here answering questions about the most intimate and usually private areas of one's life, isn't it better that one does it with some style rather than catch the rather furtive, prying disease that seems to be endemic in English courts?
The cases in Fulchester are fictitious. You can join us again tomorrow when The Queen against Phillips will be concluded in the Crown Court. Harold Phillips is accused of assault on his wife June, occasioning actual bodily harm. He is elected to defend himself. Today, the last day of the trial, the jury, selected from members of the public, will reach their own unscripted verdict.
You are Terence Swan?
I am.
And you live at 27 Ranford Drive, Fulchester?
Yes.
Mr. Swan, how long have you known my wife and myself?
Oh, about 5 years.
And would you call yourself a friend of both of us?
I would, yes.
About 4 months ago, I asked you to do something for me.
That's right.
Will you tell the court what it was?
Well, as I recall, you asked me to visit your wife and Mr. Halstead and try and arrange a meeting between you three.
Just us three?
No. You said that they could have anyone there that they wanted, that you didn't want to be violent or abusive in any way, but you just wanted the opportunity to talk.
And were you able to arrange this meeting?
Unfortunately, no. I did try. I spoke to Jeremy and June separately, and together, as a matter of fact, but it wasn't any good. They just wouldn't see you.
Why was that?
I don't know. I did impress on them that it wouldn't be an unpleasant meeting, but they were obstinate. Obdurate, one might say.
Were you worried that if you did arrange such a meeting, I might become violent?
Not at all.
Why was that?
I just do not believe that you are a violent man. Also, I knew that you loved your wife and wouldn't want to hurt her.
So you agreed to arrange this meeting because you had absolute confidence of my peaceful intentions?
That's right.
Thank you.
Mr. Swan, you weren't able to arrange this meeting?
No.
How did Mr. Phillips take that?
He was disappointed, naturally.
Oh, naturally. I put it to you that he was more than that. He was angry.
No, disappointed, that's all.
You mentioned Jeremy and June.
That's right.
You knew them, did you?
Yes, I knew them.
How well?
Very well. We were all good friends.
You were part of this wife-swapping circle?
We don't call it that.
Nevertheless, that's what it was, wasn't it?
It was more than that.
But you did swap wives as part of your activities.
It was not as crude as you make it sound.
Really? I understand that members of such a group undertake to be absolutely honest with their partners and to keep their extramarital sex on an uninvolved level.
Yes?
Yes, but what happens, Mr. Swan, when love breaks into this purely physical roundabout?
I don't know what you mean.
I'm not really surprised, Mr. Swan. What happens when a couple fall in love with each other? Doesn't this release some real emotion?
I'm afraid I don't understand what you're trying to elicit either, Mr. Harvesty.
I'm sorry, my lord. I put it to you, Mr. Swan, that when a genuine and deeply felt emotion enters into this game, people get hurt. They get angry. And then they do things that normally they wouldn't do.
Are you asking the witness about a specific couple, Mr. Harvesty, or are you asking him to speculate?
I apologize again, my lord. When you saw Mr. Halstead and Mrs. Phillips together, did you form the impression that they were deeply in love with each other?
My lord, I don't really know much about the law, but what have Mr. Swan's impressions got to do with it?
You obviously understand it well enough, Mr. Phillips.
Very sorry, my lord. Mr. Swan, did they tell you that they were in love with each other?
Yes.
Ah. And I put it to you that they convinced you they were in love.
Yes.
And you told Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
And I put it to you that he was jealous.
He was sad, of course.
And angry.
No, sad.
Determined, though, to go on and talk to them, come what may.
He wanted to talk to them.
Yes, but surely he was angry, wasn't he? Because his wife and Mr. Halstead had broken this code of behaviour which you all adopted.
He wasn't angry.
So we saw in that courtroom. Thank you, Mr. Swan.
Have you any further questions, Mr. Phillips?
Just one, my lord. Mr. Swan, in spite of everything the prosecutor has tried to make you say, do you insist that at no time did you ever see me angry?
Yes. No. I never saw you angry.
Thank you.
You may leave the witness box, Mr. Swan.
Mrs. Barnett, you were the defendant in the case which Mr. Halstead was prosecuting at the magistrate's court.
Yes, but I got off, didn't I? They couldn't make it stick, could they? Because I was innocent like you are. You'll get off too, just you see. They won't put you down.
Mrs. Barnett, please restrict yourself to answering questions. We're not interested in your opinions.
Sorry, sir.
Did you see the incident in which Mrs. Phillips was hurt?
Of course I did. They had a grandstand view from the witness box.
Will you tell the court what you saw?
Well, the barrister was going on it. It was very heavy, he was. And suddenly you shouted at him and came down the aisle. Well, the lady stood up right in front of her and crashed. You banged right into her.
Did you see me deliberately push her against the wall?
No, it was just like a collision, an accident.
You're quite sure about that?
Of course I am. I could see as clear as day from up there.
Thank you, Mrs. Barnett.
You were very angry yourself, weren't you?
Well, it was being unfair.
Well, yes, but that's a matter of opinion.
The magistrate's opinion, I got off.
Yes, so you said. But I put it to you, Mrs. Barnett, that you were so keen to see Mr. Phillips get to Mr. Halstead, for whatever reason, that you weren't really looking at Mrs. Phillips.
Well, I was looking at Mr. Phillips, but as he crashed into Mrs. Phillips, I couldn't very well miss her, could I?
But you weren't sorry that your cross-examination had been suspended.
Is this relevant, my lord?
Mr. Harvesty?
I'm allowed to examine the veracity of witnesses too, I hope, my lord.
Yes, of course. Carry on.
Thank you, my lord. I put it to you that you were highly delighted that the man who was prosecuting the case against you for keeping a disorderly house...
Mr. Harvesty, that is not relevant.
As your lordship pleases. I put it to you that you were delighted that the man prosecuting the case against you was thrown off his stride and embarrassed.
Oh, I wasn't sorry. I was being very rude and saying that I was the sort of person that it turns out later...
Just answer my questions, Mrs. Barnett. You weren't sorry, were you?
No, to be honest, I wasn't.
And you must have felt some gratitude to the man who had caused the case against you to be interrupted.
I was just interested, really, and puzzled at the time. It wasn't until later when I realised they was trying to pin this accident on Mr. Phillips. Now, then I was angry, because it was an accident.
All right, you say that they just crashed together.
That's right.
But Mrs. Phillips was thrown violently to one side against the wall.
So? It's like snooker, isn't it? I mean, if when two snooker balls hit each other, they only ever went backwards, there wouldn't be no game, would they? I mean, if you've got a pink next to the
Yes,
pocket...
all
and
right,
hit it
thank
with
you,
a...
Mrs. Barnett. We can do without lessons in snooker.
It's the same thing, though, isn't it?
But you're here, are you, to try to convince us that even though you were delighted that the man, Mr. Halstead, prosecuting the case against you, was prevented from doing so, you have no feelings of ill will towards him?
Oh, no. Got lots of ill will towards him. But, I mean, here to tell you what I seen. I seen an accident.
Thank you, Mrs. Barnett.
Have you any further questions, Miss Phillips?
No, I don't think so, my lord. Thank you very much, Mrs. Barnett.
It's all right.
You may leave the witness box.
Sir.
My lord, I should be grateful to you for your help. Obviously, I want to give evidence myself, but there's no one to examine me. What do we do?
Well, there are 3 courses open to you. You can say nothing at all if you wish. Or you can make an unsworn statement, that is, you won't be on oath and can't be cross-examined by Mr. Harvested. Thirdly, you can make a statement on oath, which can be tested in cross-examination by Mr. Harvested, if he so wishes.
Thank you, my lord. I'd like to make a statement on oath.
Very well.
Hold the book in your right hand and read the words from the card.
I swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Now state your name and address and make your statement.
I am Harold Phillips, and I live at 11 Lasden Drive, Fulchester. Now, let me start at the beginning, at that party. I suppose it's inevitable that you'll have all sorts of bizarre ideas about it. It is true that married couples came there, and many of them left with partners who weren't their husbands. But it wasn't an orgy. There weren't any sexy games, or incense, or drugs, or any of the pictures usually conjured up by the phrase wife-swapping party. It was a party like any other.
My lord, exercising the greatest ingenuity that I can muster, I can't see that there's any relevance in a detailed description of wife-swapping parties.
Mr. Harvested, I have come to the conclusion that unless we relax our concept of what is relevant and loosen the rein on Mr. Phillips, we shall never get to the end of this case. I propose to let him continue.
Thank you, my lord. As I was saying, at my parties there really is very little sexual tension. Now, you may ask, if people are so relaxed about sexual behaviour, why get married at all? But it is a fact that people who would hold that sex is the unique ingredient of marriage still have affairs outside marriage. Not because they have an overwhelming love for the person, but because they have a physical attraction for them. But they're so guilty about this, so dishonest, that they have to convince themselves that it's a great love, or they can't live with themselves. So they break up their marriage to avoid a guilty conscience.
My lord, I'm sorry to interrupt yet again, but this is just a general and speciously argued case for sexual license. It has nothing to do with a charge of assault.
I agree. Mr. Phillips, your statement must relate to the charge. We're not here to provide you with a soapbox.
I'm sorry, my lord. I'll get to the point as quickly as possible. You see, my wife and I had that sort of marriage. We were free to enjoy sexual relationships outside our marriage, but we did have one rule. We had to be honest with each other. That was essential. Well, my wife broke that rule. She had an affair with Jeremy Halstead that I knew nothing about. Suddenly she was gone. Well, I was heartbroken. I reacted as I suppose anyone would. Not particularly rationally or even sensibly. I had just one overwhelming desire, and that was to speak to my wife. and to Mr. Halstead. But they wouldn't see me. They hung up when I phoned them. They wouldn't answer my letters. They wouldn't open the door to me. So I wrote to Mr. Halstead and said that if he wouldn't see me at home, I would come along to see him at court. I heard nothing, so I went along to see him at court. I had no intention, of course, of speaking to him while he was actually pleading. I sat in court so that I knew when he left. But he was prosecuting in a case which involved sex. And as I listened to him, I became more and more contemptuous. Here was a man that I knew did not believe in normal moral codes of behavior, pontificating on sexual behavior as much as the most rigid and hidebound moralist. And also, here was a man who was so dishonest that he wouldn't even talk to the man whose trust he had abused. Well, I lost my temper and shouted out what I thought about him.
You do realize that you are tending to incriminate yourself by your statement? I've warned you before.
No, my lord, I do strenuously deny that I was in any way guilty of assaulting my wife. I was making my way towards Mr. Halstead and my wife suddenly appeared. I was moving quickly and she was knocked to one side. It was as simple as that. I had no wish to assault her. I've no wish to assault her now. What happened in that court was an accident. I detest physical violence, and I wouldn't attempt to defend or justify anyone who was rightly accused of it. The thing was an accident. I did not deliberately assault my wife. That's all I have to say, my lord.
Do you wish to cross-examine Mr. Harvester?
I do indeed, my lord.
Then we shall adjourn for luncheon so as not to interrupt your cross-examination.
The court will rise.
Now, Mr. Phillips, in the course of your very long statement, you used a great number of specious arguments to justify a general sexual license.
Well, I wouldn't agree with that, of course.
Are you really asking this jury to believe that a man who was so free and easy in his sexual life was heartbroken when his wife left him, and his only wish was to persuade her to come back to him? A wife to whom he was continually unfaithful.
I wasn't unfaithful. I kept complete faith with her.
Oh, now, you cannot impose your peculiar definitions on the jury, Mr. Phillips. Don't you understand that in common English, to be unfaithful means to have sexual relations with a woman who isn't your wife?
Yes, I suppose so.
Yes, this is an English court, Mr. Phillips, administering English law. And in plain English, you were frequently unfaithful to your wife.
Now, I still deny it. To keep faith is to stand by a bargain, a contract. It doesn't matter what sort of contract, as long as it's agreed by both parties. And I did keep faith with that contract.
You would agree, wouldn't you, that a contract, to be legally, even morally binding, should have the free consent of both parties?
Yes.
But the first freely entered contract that you made with Mrs. Phillips didn't include clauses about sexual license. I refer, of course, to the normal marriage contract.
No, it didn't.
But you broke that. So Mrs. Phillips, if her marriage was to continue, had to agree to your bizarre ideas of what a marriage was.
I don't agree that they were bizarre, and she didn't have to agree to them anyway. She could have decided she didn't want to be married to me under those conditions. I put no pressure on her.
Nevertheless, you did agree to the normal marriage contract.
Yes.
Then you changed your mind and imposed another contract.
I deny that I imposed anything.
You've described yourself and your wife as a swinging couple, haven't you?
Rather reluctantly, but yes, I did.
Meaning people who have thrown over the normal morality?
Yes, I suppose so.
Then why shouldn't we infer from that you've also thrown over the morality that forbids us to resort to physical violence?
If you can't see the logical fallacy of your question, I'm not...
Answer the question, Mr. Phillips.
Because I deny accepted moral behaviour, it doesn't follow logically that I feel free to murder strangers or rape children or print my own banknotes or even hang word-twisting barristers.
I'm relieved to hear that.
Are you? Why? Are you a word-twisting barrister?
No, Mr. Phillips, but I am the father of children. That's what I was referring to.
Ah, then I'm relieved too.
But you do feel free to assault what you regard as word-twisting barristers.
No, I don't.
Then why were you moving on Mr. Halstead?
I was going to tell him what I thought of him.
But you've already testified that you were so angry that normal restraints have been abandoned. You set off down the aisle toward Mr. Halstead. Why? To have an intellectual discussion with him on the ethics of sexual mores?
I was going to tell him that I considered...
Oh, come on, Mr. Phillips. You were very angry. You've already said that. And you've also said it was inexcusable.
Yes, it was.
Yes. And you're now asking us to believe that although you were angry enough to break what is, after all, a powerful taboo, the silence of a courtroom, you weren't so angry that you'd have hit Mr. Halstead if you'd got to him.
It's all hypothetical. The fact was I didn't get to Mr. Halstead, so what would have happened doesn't matter.
But it does matter, Mr. Phillips. I put it to you that, infuriated as you were, you set out to hit Mr. Halstead. And then when your wife crossed your path, you seized the opportunity to bash her one, too.
But I'm not charged with an assault on Mr. Halstead.
No, but you are charged with assaulting your wife.
My lord, do I have
I put
to
it
answer
to
these?
you that you were advancing on Mr. Halstead to hit him.
My lord, do I have to answer these hypothetical questions?
You have to answer that one.
No, I wasn't going to assault Mr. Halstead.
Very well, very well. We find you advancing in anger and shouting towards Mr. Halstead. You would agree about that?
Yes.
Yes. Suddenly, you find someone in your way.
Yes?
I put it to you that you were so determined to get to Mr. Halstead that you thrust aside the obstructing body.
No.
Occasioning actual bodily harm to your wife.
I wasn't even aware it was my wife when the incident happened.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have struck her?
Oh, Mr. Harvesty, thank you. At last I've actually heard it in my own court. The classic unfair question. Have you stopped beating your wife?
I'm sorry, my lord. Mr. Phillips, I'll put it to you that you were so angry and so determined to get to Mr. Halstead that you would have thrust aside anyone who tried to obstruct you.
No, I didn't thrust her aside. Besides, you've heard the policeman's evidence. I didn't resist arrest.
No, he didn't quite say that, did he? He said that he had you in a full Nelson. Well, I don't imagine that policemen do that routinely to everyone they arrest, do you?
No.
Well, he must have thought it was necessary.
There's no need to speculate. You could have asked him if he wanted to know.
Yes, my lord. You heard the extremely lucid testimony of Mr. Halstead?
Well, of course he was lucid. He's a professional.
He described fully and accurately what he saw. That you put your hand on Mrs. Phillips's side and with a sweeping motion thrust her against the wall.
All I can say is I deny it.
You can be absolutely specific in your denial, even though you admit that you were so angry that you were raving and shouting in a courtroom.
I do deny it, yes.
I've no further questions, my lord.
Have you anything further to say arising out of Mr. Harvey's cross-examination? You must limit yourself to matters raised by him.
My lord, I shall have a chance to sum up for the jury, shan't I?
Yes.
I'll leave it until then. I don't want to waste the court's time.
Thank you. You can go back to the dock now.
And you have heard in this court an extremely large amount of irrelevant matter about Mr. Phillips's beliefs and lifestyle. This often happens when a defendant chooses to defend himself, as the professionals in a court are unwilling to fuse the full rigours of court procedure on someone who might be put off by constant interruption. Nevertheless, it's your duty to ignore all that and to concentrate on the evidence about the assault. Let me remind you that Mr. Phillips has admitted advancing on Mr. Halstead, and you've heard Mr. Halstead, the clerk of the court, and the police officer all say that Phillips thrust his wife to one side when she tried to stop his interrupting the court. Well, I have to suggest to you that you have no alternative but to find Phillips guilty.
Mr. Phillips?
Members of the jury, the prosecutor has told you to ignore much of what's been said today. But I suggest you don't do that. Because everything that's been said has pointed to the fact that I'm not the sort of man that would beat his wife. Now, I know many of you will not approve of the way I live or the things I believe in. But I put it to you that this has nothing whatsoever to do with my attitude towards physical violence, which I detest. So in spite of what you may think of me,
I do ask you to let justice be done and find me not guilty of assaulting my wife. Thank you.
Members of the jury, the accused is charged with assaulting his wife and causing her actual bodily harm. Now, the actual bodily harm, there can be no doubt. The question is whether her injuries were the result of the accused accidentally colliding with her, or whether they were the result of his having thrust her deliberately and violently aside. And that is a matter for you to decide. Now, you may ask yourselves, do you think it likely that she could have been thrown violently against the wall in a mere accident? Now, the burden of proving their case rests upon the Crown.
Have you reached a verdict upon which you are all agreed? Please answer yes or no.
Yes.
What is the verdict? Please answer, do you find the defendant Harold Stuart Phillips guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
The cases in Fulchester are fictitious. Cameras return to bring you another leading case in the Crown Court.